So good afternoon. As it is 1 p.m., I will call this City Council workshop of May 27th, 2025 to order. This will be both a physical meeting and a virtual meeting. Some members of city staff or consultants may be participating via teleconference. Today's meeting may be viewed on YouTube, Facebook, and following the meeting on cable channel 10 HD 1090. Public comment is not normally taken at workshop meetings, although the council may allow or request public participation on action items. We have one action item on our agenda today. It's the last topic that we'll be covering. I hope everyone enjoyed the Memorial Day weekend. I just have a message that I would like to read. Many of us spent yesterday honoring those who sacrificed their lives in service to our country. Yet for others, it was a day to harass and attempt to humiliate people, including me, for activities they chose in their personal lives. I believe in work-life balance, and I also believe that we are allowed to have a personal life. For me, that includes attending art shows, concerts, performances, and Broadway shows. And just as a heads up, some of you who are interested in taking video may want to watch my feed, as I will be attending the Mamma Mia performance in 2 weeks at the Paramount in Seattle. In fact, I choose to support the arts in all forms. Recently, this included inviting the students and teachers from Oak Harbor High School to share their artistic achievements with the community at a council meeting. It is concerning that people are interested in my private time and what I do after hours, and unfair to the hard work that my staff puts in every day to make this community a wonderful place to live. I don't condone bullying in any fashion, and in fact, I think we should all spend less time pointing fingers anonymously on social media platforms and spend more time sitting down to talk with each other. In fact, since January, my staff and I have attended approximately 2 events per month to sit and chat with people in our community about what is important to them. One thing I never hear is a question about my personal life or the way I spend my time off the clock. I suggest we all consider taking a stand against this behavior by not participating, removing ourselves from quote-unquote community pages that focus on tearing one and our community down, instead of building us up and showcasing the fantastic people that live here. I love recognizing the community in a positive way. None of us should fear attending events because of someone else's taking video out of context in an attempt to embarrass us or our friends and family. The person who took this video and shared it with others was also in attendance and enjoyed it so much they not only took pictures of it, but a video too. This event was promoted locally as a fun event for adults. It was fun to see community members engage in fun together in a safe environment. I saw several faces of people I know in the community, but I do not feel it is my role as a community member to name names or share photos of them. At the end of the day, I want to focus on community without judgments. I know the national voice at this time includes lots of hateful rhetoric that highlights fear. But for me and my team, we want to highlight accomplishing goals, making our city better. I hope that the people or groups of people that don't like Oak Harbor and all we stand for can find a way to be positive, enjoy this beautiful island the way most of us do, instead of spending time trying to make us look bad. I look forward to continuing discussions about this city and our communications officer sharing positive stories. For example, as a veteran, I appreciate the way our community holds a public gathering to honor those that sacrificed their lives, and our staff opened up a splash park this weekend for the families enjoying the first long stretch of warm weather we have had in a while. This is Oak Harbor, and I am proud to live here and serve as your mayor. So let's get back to work. All right. This is going to be a joint meeting with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. For our first hour today, we are joined by the City Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. Commissioners, thank you for joining us. I'm going to allow you to introduce yourselves in just a moment. One of the things I think that you asked from me as the mayor is you would like me to share my vision with you, what that was for your commission. So I have prepared something. It's challenging to talk about vision because we all have so many awesome and wonderful plans for this community that we are discussing. These plans include things for today and items that we may not see come to completion because we are planning for the next 20 to 40 years. We are fortunate to live in a beautiful place called Whidbey Island. I appreciate the work our parks operations staff does every day to maintain and enhance our parks for all of us to recreate it on a regular basis. I am also excited about the upcoming summer camps and new programs that our recreation division is working on. Overall, my vision is to provide outlets for people of all ages to enjoy our community more, whether it is walking in the parks or taking a class to learn something new or connecting with friends and other members of our community, or simply participating in an excursion or new fun event that staff are working to create, like Mermaids and Pirates or Chalk Fest. These activities benefit the people participating, but they also benefit our local economy. My vision for Parks and Recreation is to have programming and services that are inclusive, entertaining, active, and aids in the overall health of this community. While doing this, I want the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission and staff in the Parks and Recreation Department to focus on the city's fiscal health as well. We need to work together to focus on completing projects, communications that keep the community informed, and planning for future projects while continuing to complete existing ones. We don't have to do everything right now, and in fact, I want to caution us that sometimes we need to do less in order to do things well before we move on to do too many things fast. Let's take the time to work together and plan for successful grant applications, drafting the project plan or details to make the project robust and ready for grant applications, and focus on the conversations with community members to confirm that we are seeing all the needs and opportunities available for the future of this community. Let's plan to work together to make our Parks and Recreations program better. What makes this community great is our ability to work together as a team to accomplish things. This is also part of my vision for Parks and Recreation activities. Let's resource our partners and team up not just on the playing field, but at the planning table. It's not just the city, but our community partners and legislators that also want to see us succeed. Let's continue to engage and include them as we look towards our future. I want to thank Parks and Recreation Director Brian Smith, the team in Parks and Recreation, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, and all the staff they work with to accomplish their projects and goals. Working together, we can continue to provide our community with exemplary parks and recreation programs. With that, I will turn it over to our Commission Chair, Ms. Carrie Stuckey.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Carrie Stuckey. Is this on? Can you hear me? The light's on. Yep. Hello? Oh, I think it.
Test.
Okay,
It's just
it's on.
really low.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us today. I'm Carrie Stuckey. I am the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission Chair. I have Vicki Biggs here with me. She's one of our commissioners, and Eric Dubzinski, our Vice Chair, is on his way. He is running a couple minutes late. So the purpose of this meeting, we just wanted a chance to kind of get a face-to-face with all of you, just kind of explain what we're working on, what you guys have as a vision, and your goals as City Council and priorities that you may have, just to make sure that we're all in alignment with the projects that we're working on. We have no shortage of ideas amongst our commissioners for projects and things like that for our Parks and Recreation programs, so we just want to make sure we're honing in on the ones that are of top priority to you as well. I don't know, did you want to go ahead and say anything? Okay. Okay. So we had sent out a list of kind of our top 3 projects that are on our radar, and then an additional list of other projects that we've been discussing or talking about, and if there was anything on that list that you guys wanted to discuss or had questions about, if we have time at the end, we can do that as well. So our first topic that we had was Windjammer Park, sort of as a whole. This was not specifically listed on the 2025-2026 priority list for council, although it could possibly be under the umbrella of park renovations and improvements. It was listed as number 3 on the previous city council priority list. So we also wanted to kind of clarify those priorities because they're a little bit vague, especially the 2025-2026 priorities. So at this time for Windjammer Park, kind of the top thing that we're looking at is building an inclusive playground. This was also on your previous priorities list, but not specifically on the current priorities list. And so the things that we're kind of discussing right now are placement of that within the park, funding, community outreach ideas, things like that. Another item that is kind of top importance is the Rotary Windmill, which is in They're continuing to work hard on that. And then the Lagoon Dock project has sort of been on hold at this time. But I think one of the things is we kind of want to have a good idea of what you guys would like to see in Windjammer Park so that we are focusing on those things instead of things that you're not interested in funding. Did you want to talk? Okay. I just wanted to introduce, this is Eric Dibzinski, our vice chair. He's here now. So do you have any questions about that item at this point?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. The inclusive playground, I know that we've had several discussions about why we want one, why it's important. Is there a status on that project? I mean, like, how far into it? Do we have drawings? Do we have a possible location, or have we not gotten that far?
We had applied for a grant that we unfortunately did not get. And the main reason we didn't get it was because our application was very strong, but it wasn't a shovel-ready project, essentially. So we have been working with some playground design companies to get a full design made so that we can submit that with our next round of grant applications. And Brian may have a little bit more information on that.
I think you covered just about most everything there, yeah. So we brought this to council workshop back in March of last year. We did go after a FMLD grant and just barely did not make the cut, yeah. And like Carrie said, the feedback was they really loved the project. They'd just like to see us a little more shovel-ready with permits and plans in hand. It's unusual to do a pre-plan for the playground. Usually it's a design-build type of project. But we do have an RFP that we've put out together. The commission is currently reviewing that. We'll bring that back to council for a look at that, and you're okay to move forward there. We did allocate out $350,000 from the Windjammer Park Improvement Funds as the match for the playground. Several playground providers, and I did talk with quite a few of them the other week at the Washington Recreation and Parks Association conference. And several of them do provide planning efforts and layout and creating the design for amenities free of charge. There might be some costs around permitting, so I imagine the planning and construction documents will be fairly low cost. So we're looking to put that out shortly and bring that back to council when we find a good workshop time to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know the windmill is, that's getting worked on. And my only, I think there's, I mean, obviously so many cool things that we could do. But in terms of public services and accessibility, and I know I say this every time we talk about parks, but for me personally, a priority for all public facilities would be restrooms, public restrooms, more Portland loos. We have to figure out a way to get some more of those in public spaces. But that's all I've got on the park thing. Thank you.
I could speak to that one as well.
Oh, that'd be great. Please,
Yes.
update.
So I met with about 4 different prefab structure providers for public restrooms. This is a big issue with us, mostly because the portalets that we put in parks that don't have brick and mortar restrooms or Portland loos are very susceptible to vandalism. And we have lost some to vandalism. We've had to pull some because of vandalism. This continues to be an issue. Basically, our policy around it is if a community park has a parking lot and is really intended for people to commute to the site, so it's not really one of those like neighborhood pocket parks where we expect people are just coming from their houses and it's smaller, but people are coming from around the city to engage in different activities. If there's organized play there, that we should have a restroom on site and provide those services. So we do have portalets in each one of those sites. We did some cost estimates. We can put small prefab restrooms for about $100,000 in at those sites, and so that's something that we're going to strategize and look at, providing something a little more permanent for especially parks like Coochie Park, Sumner Park, those type of parks that are not like Windjammer or Fort Nugent, but big enough that we're doing those kind of activities.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, and yeah, thanks, Parks Commission. I know it's not an easy job. I've sat there with you, and it's a lot. It's a lot of overwhelming coming at you, and you've come to us, obviously, and asked for some priorities, and I'm going to obviously take the time, I guess, to put some thought to it and give you a couple on my end. First off, we had talked last year, and I'm sure Brian and Liz may be able to address this, but about, attempting to get vending machines back at some of our parks for the summer, and also I know Liz had done some work last year on working on getting some food vendors to show up, especially down to Windjammer Park, and I think that's just an enhancement for the enjoyment of the public. I think it's a service we can provide, just getting out there trying to promote. I know there's a couple of guys from Anacortes that have started an ice cream truck. If we reached out to them and made sure that they knew that we'd make that space available to them if they wanted to come down. I think it's just again, enhancement for the participants. It's something that doesn't cost the city any money. It costs us a little time, but can greatly enhance that experience. Secondly, I think we have to talk about something we don't want to talk about, and that is whatever we're going to have to do to make the large lawn at Windjammer Park usable for more events. It's something we really don't want to talk about, but we have to, right? I mean, we made the large lawn the focal point of the park. In fact, we did several things to protect that large lawn from smaller projects, right? And the idea of having the large lawn space was for large lawn type events, and families go down there and be able to pitch a tent, which we can't let them do, and enjoy that lawn. And not only do we have a problem keeping it to any sort of greenery, right? We were just dumping water on it, and it's just not the right type of soil. And then we've got obviously the sprinklers at the depth they are, where even holding the car show isn't really an option for us. And it just seems to me, again, something that we just have to discuss, and we just have to, as a council, we're going to have to at some point bite the bullet and come up with the funding source for you guys to be able to do something with that, right? And I just want to let you know, from a council standpoint, I get that, and obviously if you guys know that we know that we're going to have to come up with funding, then you're possibly going to come up with a long-term solution, and we can get that fixed and get you the funding you need to do that.
Yeah, and this is a discussion point. You can lead this discussion, Carrie, but one of the things that the commission has talked about is those priorities around some of these amenities. So what you have up here is the improvement site map for Windjammer Park. Now, originally, that eastern portion where we have the ball fields had been planned to be replaced with the sports complex at Harbor Heights and turned into a great lawn for special events. With all the different moving parts there, that sports complex project put on hold, not wanting to remove any ball fields until we had a viable relocation for that. That great lawn was kind of removed from that planning project. And so, yeah, we've looked at, well, how do we provide better event support at the park? So on the west side of the park, you see thanks.
It has the light on it, so I thought.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there. So great lawn over here on the east side of the park for special events. So that's something, a consideration, and a visioning, I guess, discussion is if and when we do construct a sports complex where we have adequate ball fields at another location, what's the best use of this area? Do we continue to use it as ball fields for even greater capacity for league play, or does that transition into a special event space for much larger special events? We just had the Renaissance Fair over the weekend. They had originally come to us wanting to do that in one of the parks, but because our parks are so utilized with league play concerned about the recovery time to make repairs to the turf after the event. The city ended up passing on that, and while we did still have it in Oak Harbor, which was great, we really don't have a fairgrounds or anything like that, right? Now, over here on the west side of the park, you see the yellow areas here on our side of the ball courts. So those were designed to be drivable grass areas. I've heard different things of, oh yeah, this whole area was designed for that. That's not actually accurate. We do also have to be careful with areas around here where we have indigenous remains that we want to not disturb. So it's kind of a limited space here and here that can really support those. And I agree with you. As we look at what's the best and highest use of, especially around here, this space, which is often used for our National Night Out with our safety departments, and a great location for that, and has been. How do we make sure that that's even more usable? You'll see the little dot or space right here. So that's where the playground was originally envisioned. I think the inclusive playground right now we're looking at is a little more over in this area, this corner, but that's always kind of been intended for the playground to be somewhere over here on the west side of the park, but really nothing else considered here. So I think there is an opportunity to look at that.
So Brian, when we were originally doing the budget, I thought we had built in there within the park renovations for the revitalization of like the sprinkler system and then redoing the grass.
That's correct, yes.
So then we would be able to ultimately put the carnival and stuff there. So that is in the budget.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so.
And do we know, has the chamber found a location for the carnival this year? I know
Yes.
that was a struggle.
Yes.
They did. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, Brian. Councilmember Stuckey, sorry.
Well, I mean, we have a commissioner, Stuckey, so make it easy, right? A couple questions. So one, regarding the inclusive playground, do you know a somewhat time frame of when we could go out to the community to ask for funds? I mean, there are community organizations chomping at the bit to donate and assist with this, but obviously know we want to wait till at a certain level for that. So any idea on a loose time frame?
My understanding is that Brian had put together an RFP for the design of the playground. And then, Brian, I'm not sure if you want to speak to the timing of fundraising, if we're waiting for the grant decision or if we wanted to start before that.
Yeah, so the state has removed and combined a couple different grants. We were listed as alternate on a few of our projects. We're kind of waiting for that decision to be finalized, which should be around now. Hopefully, we'll hear something very, very soon. Yeah, we want to make sure that we align donation and fundraising with as early as possible, as soon as we know that this is a sure project to happen. I don't want to take people's money and then we're 6 years out, or it's indefinite when that happens. But we do want to align it with strategically the city's allocation, grant funding that we know we're going to get, and we can move forward. And then really that becomes a savings for the city.
I like to think that hopefully, as much as possible, the community's priorities are the council's priorities. And I'm looking at the extensive survey we did from 22, where we asked the community what sort of things they would like to see. Looking at that, there's some of them we've kind of done a little bit on, fixing the splash park. But other things I'm thinking on here is enhance the pavilion, do something with the interpretive center, and then also improve picnic and seating options to include shade. On those 3 items, are we doing anything with those 3 items?
Yeah, so we budgeted for all of those. Those are all in the budget to be implemented. The architectural for the interpretive center, we have not started that one yet. We're working on other planning projects right now. But eventually we'll get with Public Works to start looking at that. Basically, that creates a new egress on the front side and allows us to close off the secure access points into the clean water facility so that we can do more public use of that space and events. The shade structures, We'd like to kind of do that in line with the playground because we do have that in the design of the playground, and so we'll get a little more bang for our buck to have that as part of that project. So that'll go in, and then Brandon and his team are working on some of the other small improvements to the kitchens, and we're still working on some improvements to the splash park as well.
Great, thank you so much.
So Brian, as part of the interpretive center too, were we looking at doing those like open folding doors to kind of make that an indoor-outdoor space?
That's correct, yeah, on the front
okay.
side.
Yeah. Anything else? Yes, Councilmember Merrill.
I've been observing the Parks and Rec functioning in the community now for about 10 years. And now we have a relatively new Parks and Rec department in the city. And I just wanted to praise Director Brian Smith and the executive branch, Mayor Wright, and all the rest with regard to the constructive planning to do things and get them done. It's wonderful. It's just, it brings joy in my heart to see these accomplishments. With regard to Windjammer Park, it's key to have the right mix, but not to get too overcrowded as well. So that, because the temptation is, well, we got this space and you want to fill it, but there's a cost to that with regard to the ambience of the park. So I'm not saying don't put things there. I think it's great. It's wonderful, actually, in every aspect, but casting your eyes even to other areas where there might be a place to put some function for Parks and Rec that was maybe originally was designed or planned for Windjammer might be an idea. But I'm leaving it to the professionals. You all have great ideas and plans in that regard. And I did want to make mention about Flintstone Park. It's great, the improvements that are ongoing there, and I had to smile because they got big stones, just like the Flintstones. And so things are working out there, but that's just a small matter. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Merrill. Is that it? All right, and then I'll pass it back to you, Carrie.
Yeah, just to speak real quick to the not putting too many things in Windjammer Park. That's precisely the reason we wanted to have this type of meeting, so we know what your priorities are. We don't want to pack it full of too much stuff. We want to, thoughtfully place things where they're going to be most effective. So that's part of the purpose of this meeting. If there's no further questions.
And Carrie, may I add to that as well? So as we look at the envisioning of this build out of kind of the major structures that are going in, the playground is one that we're actively working on right now. We know that the windmill is one that is actively being worked on right now, and so that's going to take up some space to the east of the parking lot there, and looking at the balance of that with the playground. There is a third one there, and that's the amphitheater for an arts stage, to do performances. That is conceptually envisioned of having the audience facing the harbor, with that kind of facing the stage facing away from or towards, I guess, where sunset would be. Right now, the setup of it is you have the audience basically looking right into the sun at sunset, which is kind of opposite of what you usually want to do. This would allow for lighting and sound systems and different things to be attached to the structure. That's another thing that we want to look at. Okay, how much do we want to put in the park? Is that still something that we want to start moving towards? Discussion will probably pull the Arts Commission in with you guys on, but again, I think the commissions are just looking for, really what is your vision? Are they going in the right direction with these spaces? And of course, we'll bring all these things to you as we do RFPs and go after funding for implementation and things, but really want to have you guys thinking about it and giving them good feedback on, this is how the community likes to use the park, and this is what we see for it.
Councilmember Stuckey.
As we talk about our priorities, and naturally comes our priorities, which are hopefully the community priorities that come to you to get feedback on those priorities, is there anything that maybe is the reverse, anything that you feel that we should be adding as a priority and discussing that maybe we haven't discussed when it comes to Windjammer Park?
There's nothing, I guess really we just want feedback and to know that we're on the same page as council and the mayor. There's nothing that. Okay, Eric can speak to that.
Sorry. Yeah, it's a slow-moving process sometimes on our Tuesdays that act like Mondays. I think one of the things that we're not talking about is what happens across the street, Friend Marsh. You know, I tie that into the greater Windjammer area, and even making that feel more so, except for those that just, use it for walking or running. We have, ability, and in the past, we have had conversations about, are we going to extend the trail out to the beach? There's places along that trail, it's so well used, that need more attention as far as handling drainage, improvement of sightlines, but we have a lot of space over there. There's a really wonderful nature over there, especially in the mornings and towards dusk when you can hear a lot from the birds. It's really a beautiful area to be, and we need to think about how we maintain that, little bit of pristine nature in the middle or on the edge of downtown, while also encouraging people to activate it more. And I think for relatively low cost. We're not talking about building structures. We're just talking about making it more readily accessible for people with a variety of, capabilities as far as movement and stuff to get out there and experience that, because it's right there waiting to be enjoyed. And I think we're almost there, but we're not where we could be as far as really enhancing that. And I'd like to see some attention given to that side of the street.
So in regards to that marsh, we had been in discussions to purchase that. That did not come to fruition. So that is not city jurisdiction, so to speak. Right, but there's... Could you talk... Are we sure about that? Okay.
So the trail and the park and all that is still that's already in existence. I think that they're wanting to talk about how we could further develop that, though. And having done a tour out there, was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now, with Steve Schuler and Kendall, there's definitely concerns I have as far as, potential liability issues and that with the condition of things and how we're maintaining that, what we need to do. And then there's some ongoing work that we're doing to maintain the drainage field, to make sure that that pumping station stays at performance levels that it needs to be at. So those are all ongoing discussions and things that we are looking at and how we can improve all of that going forward. So, and Steve is working closely with us on that, so.
And I think the other thing is we were made very aware of requirements for folks like the Department of Ecology and things like that when we work in that space. So just being very protective that we're following those rules and guidelines.
Absolutely. I think we saw that survey that came back, and one of the big things that was asked of parks was to extend and enhance the walking trail network in downtown. Now, we recognize that there's just not a lot of space to do that, and what we could do might take quite a while, whether that's going towards the marina. But what we do have is, we have to work with the Department of Ecology, but we can answer that call by doing something there with the property that we do own and enhancing what we already have. For while we can't add mileage, we might be able to improve. And then the Parks Board, seeing that, or the commission, we shifted our gaze to, let's see if we can open up some more trails at Harbor Heights or Freedom Park now to answer some of that demand and put trails in a part of the city where people hadn't been going to. Mm-hmm. So, and that's, I think, the kind of engagement that we're looking for with you all, is how do we get creative about being able to answer those calls from the community with a both and, not a no.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing we can add to this discussion too is that staff was working, I want to say last year, it might have been the year before, on the active transportation plan. And part of that whole discussion is talking about how do we connect through trail systems and bike and walkway paths through the city to get people to these different areas. So I think in long-term planning, as Mayor keeps bringing up, we're trying to really focus on that. So I love having this interactive conversation about how we can continue to look at those things, because that plan does outline several different areas, including in the Windjammer area, of what we can do to address that and make that more feasible and safer for people to get around in that way.
Yeah, you're specifically asking about the ones that we didn't purchase was the waterfront piece, correct? Yeah, the waterfront, yeah. So, yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and Eric, I really appreciate you bringing that up, right? Because it's so easy to focus on when you say park, Windjammer Park, right? And there's so much more to it. We've got all the pocket parks throughout the city, several of which have, a lot of time and effort has been put into updating equipment on, right? And because they had been forgotten for many, many, many years. And when it comes to Friend Marsh, you're absolutely correct. From an intrinsic standpoint, we absolutely have to stay on top of, if nothing else, maintaining what we have there, because that was the rub from Department of Ecology last time they were up, right? We have some existing things that are there. For example, that drainage canal, connects to a non-regulated body of water, which gives us, an exemption as long as we continue to maintain it. I think that, a lot of that would hold true to the existing trails and the existing facilities we have down there. If we turn our head for just a minute, that all gets overtaken. And so, I hand it to Brandon and his crew, for getting down there and remembering to take care of some of that stuff. I know we had a call from a neighbor where the thistle comes up, and once it comes up and blooms, it blows everywhere and then just spreads. And you guys were all over that and went down there and dealt with that. So, yes, Eric, you're absolutely right. We got to keep our focus on all the other little parks too, and making sure we don't forget about things like Friend Marsh. That could be a lot more than it is. I think it's, but we got to make sure that we don't lose what we've got down there in the meantime. But I think you're absolutely right. I think with the appropriate time and effort and conversation with the ecology, that there's more that could happen down there. Thank you for that.
Councilmember Merrill.
With regard to the trails down near the marsh, I think the value of self-guided stations for people to read more detail, but not so dumbed down that it's just, what I'm saying, it's like kids play. But I think that it adds value for people who, are walking and they want to turn and they look to the marsh or they look to some area there, and it has specifics about the wildlife and some of the plant life and the interaction between the two of them. Don't want to make it too highbrow or too lowbrow. I call it midbrow, so that the readers will gain from it, but at the same time not be, it wouldn't be juvenile to them. And also durability. I've seen countless numbers of stations of different types of cities and institutions brought up, and they're rotted, they're wet, you know what I'm saying? So there's got to be a way of doing this so that it doesn't degrade in the sun. But that's really beyond me. And then finally, I would like to say, with regard to any decisions about aesthetics, I've been accused rightly of being tasteless. So if I say anything about aesthetics, you just discount it. That's all.
Yes, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just hearing everybody's feedback and sitting here ruminating on the vision, I guess, for Windjammer. When I think about like the Windjammer Park of my dreams and what I would like to see down there, it's full of life and activity. Just, yeah, like life and activity and fun and people doing all kinds of things. And we need, in order to do that, we need vendors, we need food trucks, we need ice cream trucks, we need vendors because there's nowhere to get any sustenance, and we need shady spots, and yeah, and we need restrooms. And I think that if we are able to just add some of those, some of those elements are super simple because the food trucks and the vendors, all we have to do is find somebody and they can, they're the ones doing the work. We just have to set up a spot for them to do it. So there's some, and like the shades, some of these solutions are pretty simple to implement that could kind of help. I think Eric used the word activate that space before, yes, a big amphitheater would be great, but in the meantime, it has to be a usable space. And so what simple things can we implement immediately that make that space more friendly, more usable, give it more utility? And I really appreciate the way that you're all thinking about the big picture as opposed to kind of, it's easy to get myopic and just focus on one specific area, but yeah, how can we, yeah, what are we missing? How can we utilize a kind of a hidden asset or resource? And that has got me thinking, so thank you. I appreciate all your feedback. If I can,
Councilmember Arms, and then I'll call on you, Liz.
One of the things is, I know it's not perfect down at Windjammer with the theater that we have, but trying to redo all that is going to be super expensive. And I don't know if we have another place to put it, because we're jamming in a lot of things. And as far as food trucks, you're going to have a hard time finding. I've already reached out to people, and nobody is taking the bite. Part of it is, it's a short season. They can't be down there all the time. A lot of people have already made their permanent spot. Occasionally, they'll move out. I had one I thought that might want to, and she said no, she couldn't come up with the fee, so she moved into county, where she got it easier than we did. So I tried it, and if anybody has any ideas, I spoke to somebody that does have a food truck, and I asked him to please, research it, and I haven't heard anything, but we're trying.
Liz, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. That's what I kind of wanted to touch on was the food trucks. We just recently met with City Administrator Sabrina Combs and had a discussion about to get some vision on what we want that to look like in the park and get some direction. And so I think with the discussion that we've had, we'll overcome some of those obstacles that you're saying. We're trying to build a method that allows for some flexibility in the vendors. We discussed, okay, do we put out an annual RFP and we choose one vendor to fill the time, but we realize that that's not realistic for vendors. So we're talking about creating a reservation system. We've indicated a couple of spaces in the park that we would like to have them, and then allowing them to register with us, do a one-time registration, which would supply us with the documentation that we need to have to know that they're legitimate and following the code to be there. And then that would allow them to pick dates. And so what we're talking about starting is for the summer months, weekends, having them select Friday, Saturday, Sundays that they would like to be there. And then it would kind of be on a first come, first serve with those vendors who have gone through our approval process, and then they would be able to be down there in the park at those times. So we're hoping that those ideas out of that discussion, when we put that out to our food truck community and contacts, that'll be something that they'll want to participate in, because we know it's hard for them to say, yes, I can be there all the time, because they want to be at those large events on the weekends that they're filling their schedules with. So it'll definitely be, we'll learn as we go and work with the food vendors to see what works for them. But what we want to ensure is that we're giving a fair opportunity to those vendors who are following the correct practice to be there in the park, and not those who are just showing up and doing it without permission or following even the county's guidelines.
Well, I mean, it's a great idea, and that was the problem. The one vendor was on the base, and then they went to the nursery in county because they couldn't get what they wanted from the city. And so, there went a vendor, and I had given them the information, but they just didn't see it was going to work for them in the city. So, but I'll reach out again to the person again.
And definitely feel free to give them my contact information. I would love to chat with them one-on-one, see what those barriers are, and just have those conversations with them and see what we can do.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think too, again, with everything else, like we're seeing, with a culture shift and the change, things, it's going to take a while for some things to come to fruition, but things are changing. We're seeing that not just inside the city, but outside within the city, what we're doing in the city as well. The new hotel is a good example of that. The food trucks are built into the design of that. So that right there is going to spur some of this as well. So we just need to continue to be patient and embrace the culture change and move with it. I just wanted to also touch upon, I meet on a monthly basis with the IRTPO board. Don't ask me what that stands for right now. I don't remember. There's so many of these things. It's Island Resource Transportation Planning Organization. I got it. Okay. Yeah, so, and, you know, we're talking about a lot of these things, and then the Swantown development will include some of those enhancements that you guys were talking about as well. So, engineering just published that bid on Friday of last week, so we're moving forward with that. So, with that, did you want to move on to your next project or thing?
I'd just like to make one comment about the food truck conundrum. One of the things I do in my off time is I run events. And food trucks don't want to be the event, right? That's why they go to the nursery. The nursery is an event. You know, people go there and they shop, they mill around, they hang out, they pet the dog, then they get some coffee. They need to, and we need, when we build this park out, we need to be thinking in mind, are we putting in amenities, and this is my language, or attractions? And if we have attractions there, we can get the food trucks there. If we have amenities, they'll be like the rest of our pocket parks where we continue to add stuff and we hope that people go use it and then we spend hours and money maintaining it. And I think this is one of my great desires for having this type of conversation is we get selective about what we choose so the things that we choose create their own energy. They have their own gravity. And then the other things that are the amenities like food trucks and other things along that move towards it because the gravity of the things that we put in, because we're very smart about where we put them in, what we put in, and we're very confident in saying no. I think we have a history of some of this stuff being a little desperate because we find ourselves sort of on the edge of, you know, not having a very great park system. So we often jump at opportunities as they come up, but they end up becoming burdens because they're not fully thought out. If we can do this the right way, and I'm very confident we can, as Mayor Wright just talked about a culture shift, we can put the things in that will make this a whole lot easier. We're not going to fight for the food trucks. The food trucks are going to want to fight to be next to these attractions that we build. But we've got to be it smart and do it right the first time, not part way. So, thanks.
Yeah, no, I think those are great points. And then I did just get a text from the Arts Commission saying, with respect to the trail that you were speaking about, they have already toured that, I guess, and they're looking at 10 different spots where they could have sculptures. So it's part of the walk. So just throwing that out there, that is something that they've identified. And I guess they were working with Brandon on that, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. I guess we will go ahead and move on to item number 2, which is the Recreation Center feasibility study. This was also listed on the 2025-2026 priority list for council. And due to the size of this project, we just really would appreciate any feedback, comments, concerns, questions from city council, from mayor, regarding the feasibility study, regarding the recreation center itself. So, yeah.
So what I will start with is, did it go out last week for RFP?
I thought it was a week ago.
Yeah, I remember, I
Yes.
finalized the language.
Oh, 2 weeks ago.
review
I
of
was
it,
trying
yeah.
to say.
So it's gone out for RFP for that process. In lieu of that, there have been some additional developments that have come to light that we're currently pursuing as well. I had a conversation with Councilmember Wiesner last week, and there is the potential to look at potentially moving forward with something like we did as far as the gun range and a training facility for an existing structure that's already here that would meet the needs of like a sports complex, and then the potential to buy an additional lot or two adjacent to that property for parking. So, again, that's just very, very early on. These are just conversations that have, nothing's been vetted out yet, nothing's been decided. We haven't taken any further action. It's just things that we're looking at. So RFP process has gone out, has gone out now 2 weeks ago, and then we're looking at this other idea as well, to make this happen as quickly as possible for the community, so.
Did you have a specific location in mind that you were thinking, or if you?
Yeah, and I'll even let Councilmember Wiesner talk about it more if he would like to. He has all the facts, but it's the old North End Fitness. Are you familiar with that location? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about recreation facilities. Stayed at a Holiday Inn Express once, but you know, from what I understand, 15,000 to 17,000 square feet is what's appropriate for a community our size. And what I understand, 16 feet clear is the minimum height wanted for a, non-professional type basketball, the 21 or more if you're getting into the higher end of it. Seems like from the surface, the building meets some of those specs, and obviously is existing and probably cost a fifth of what it would cost the city to build the exact same facility. So, like the mayor says, early on, I think one of the largest open span structures on the entire north end of the island. So that's why it rose to the surface as to a question as to whether or not, one of the largest existing open span structures on the north end of the island could accommodate that or not. So. Goldie Road.
It's on Goldie Road. And so my only concern initially, in having the conversation was the potential with, if we're going to look at having large sporting events there, the number of people and parking spaces that we would need. But, there are some adjacent land opportunities for us to purchase with this building that we could, make into parking lots, and that would, solve that problem. So it's definitely something worth pursuing if it's something that we can do at a fraction of the cost, just like we could do the training facility for the police department. I think that, it would not be in our best interest to not look at everything possible. Plus, it would deliver something a lot faster to the community than we would be able to do if we were building it from the ground up. So, questions, comments? Yes, Councilmember Romero.
With regard to utilizing pre-existing facilities, there is much benefit to saving, but at the same time, one has to be mindful of, is it actually meeting the needs or the goals for which you are acquiring the property? So, because it is very possible not only for new ground level building up, but in project management, the business of scope creep, the thing gets bigger and bigger, and then on top of that, the project never seems to finish. So as we're developing these ideas and moving forward with them, we want to make sure we reach the end point of every one of them, and not just have 20 different projects half cooked or barely started.
Yeah, that's great. Anything else? Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
It is a big project, but I think key to that, and I was a little surprised when we saw last week that as an option for the B&O tax, because I was like, here we are talking about a B&O tax for it. We don't know what the community wants. We don't know the size based on. I mean, we got nothing really. So it is a big project, but it's one I don't want to get too much into a specific location or specific circumstance, but we need to hear from the community what they want. And I don't hear a lot of people yet articulating what that is. I've heard things from indoor football fields and stuff, which may or may not be realistic, to, hey, I want, a gym and a pool, and we already have a pool. So why it's good to talk about that, I mean, getting that RFP out, getting that, that study, because we need to really find out what the community wants. We don't want to build or buy something that's not of interest to the majority of people. So when that does come out, please engage with the public feedback, because what we don't want is to get 100 responses, make a decision based on the 100 responses, which sometimes we do, because that's the only feedback we're getting. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Romero.
One of the other aspects of project management is that you have a large project like a rec center, and in my estimation anyway, the wisest path to go is where you're able to build sections of it or in a phased approach so that you can have actually active use of the facility, even though maybe it's not all completely done. But the part that you're using is basically completely done. So again, I've seen countless projects that sort of got done. They ran out of money. They lost political support. I mean, so we just need to be mindful. Something like a rec center is, as is the case with the marina and all the related subjects to it, it has to be achievable. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, we're looking at overall size and what a requirement would be for a city of our size. And then, with it being in the current condition it's in, what would it cost to outfit it to meet the needs of what we would want out of our rec center and what we would be addressing and all of those things in the process. So, again, it's in the infancy stage. I don't want anyone to get super excited about it, but I just wanted to let you know that we are considering something else. But in the meantime, the RFP has already gone out, so we are still pursuing that as well. We are working quickly as we can on all things, for sure. So, anything else for that matter for Commissioner Stuckey? All right, if nothing, next item.
Okay. Thank you, by the way. That's good information for us to have. All right, item number 3, pickleball courts. We have been working on pickleball courts within Fort Nugent Park. I don't know if Brian or Eric wants to give just a brief update on where that project's at.
Go ahead, Brian.
Sure. Yeah, so we are probably about, I'd say, 99% design, I guess we could say for that. Sorry, I'm bringing up a visual here for you. Find it here. See if it's going to show up. There we go. Here's a rendering of the court. So we have the design plans pretty much finished. RWD, who's the contractor we're working with on the planning and permitting, is finishing up the stormwater plan and retention for that underneath the courts, and working on completing permitting for the project. We do have and are working through the language around a proposal to roll that over into bidding and construction management. This is one of the projects that we went after a grant for, and those grants were combined. That kicked us down the list a little ways to an alternative project. So this is something that we will need to come back to council and have a discussion on how and if you want to proceed with this. We can either hold on to the plans, go after another round of grant funding. We can look at redirecting funding that we have in other areas towards the construction of this. We also have this as a phased forecourt project where we can reduce the cost of it by quite a bit. But the addition of the other four courts, a lot of that is within the site prep and everything else. So it's a cost savings, but it's not going to be half of what the project is to do only 4 courts. We're also looking at lighting both for the pickleball courts and also the football fields as well as this project. We also have conceptual preliminary designs for expansion of the parking lot to accommodate additional use of this. RWD is also doing a sound study for noise pollution and impact to nearby residential, which we have found in engaging in this project is one of the major issues with pickleball courts for municipalities is residents nearby the courts coming back and filing legal action because of noise pollution. So we want to make sure that that is addressed as well. And there is a berm plan. You don't see it in this rendering. It's in the site drawings, though, around. The courts are actually laid down beneath ground level with a berm on that east side, which helps with the sound dampening as well. So we're pretty much there. We are working right now with the community to organize a North Whidbey Pickleballs Association. We have kind of a very loose group of people, and they have engaged with us throughout this project. We're going to help them formalize that a little more for fundraising efforts, and then we'll come back to council with some financial strategies and have that discussion. So that's where we're currently at.
So Brian, you mentioned the lighting, the parking, and the noise mitigation, still having to vet those things out. How far out are we on those items?
The stormwater is almost done. The parking and the lighting, that'd be an additional phase, so that's not currently in our
Okay.
cost estimates. But something that we want to have in hand, especially the parking for, another year out or so.
Because I'm assuming when we were originally told no for our grant, it was because it wasn't shovel-ready, but we're closer to being shovel-ready now, is that right?
Yes, that was some of the feedback we got, again, similar to like the playground, the more shovel we have our completed plans, permits all set, ready to go, then it's a more attractive project.
Yeah, okay. Questions, comments from council? Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
Long shot here, but at one point we had agreed to put some money into resurfacing the pickleball courts, the Rotary pickleball courts that the school district owns. Have we talked about the reverse? Does the school district have funds that they were going to use to resurface those that could then be diverted to us with the thought that they could use that for something else, that land?
Yeah, no, that was the first question I asked the school district when.
it was going to be yes.
Yeah, when we were asked to pick up and move the project forward. So the city had allocated out $50,000, which was to be meant as a match to additional donations that would all go in for a match for a grant to get to renovation of the courts. And that was quite a while ago. And that was originally intended at Neal Park. That never really came to fruition. So we took the money that we had set aside as the city's part of that grant match to look at renovating the courts at the school district's property at Rotary Park. The cost to renovate those courts is about $200,000. There's also some concerns around the root infiltration, which is breaking up the courts, that we can't really mitigate that without removing the trees. So we did approach the school district and say, hey, we have $50,000 we could put in towards this. Here's our cost estimates. We're happy to partner with you on it, but they did not have, it was not a priority for them at all at that point.
Do we get the impression then, not that we're speaking for the school district, have they kind of abandoned those courts? I mean, for all intents and purposes, do we have any indication that they're putting any money of that, or are they just kind of hoping that we're going to fill in the gap?
No, I don't know that they have any, we don't maintain anything over there with their park or the courts. I don't think there's any expectation on them that we're planning to or going to do anything there, but they don't have any plans for that. It's not on their priority list.
Because I just want to make sure we weren't going to have competing fundraising. I mean, if for some reason they were going to, let's spruce these up, and then we're going to build ours, I would hate to have two competing projects at the same time, so. Okay.
So
Thank you.
I just met with Michelle last week, and I can guarantee you that this is not a priority right now, seeing as how they just finished their budget process and they're facing another $4 million cut in their budget. So that is not a priority right now. Anything else? Nope. All right.
So with item number 3, that kind of opens a little bit of a broader conversation too for outdoor recreation facilities. Just if you had any thoughts or feedback on things like softball fields, soccer fields, baseball fields, anything that you would like to see in terms of maintenance or additional fields that you're interested in, just would like some feedback if there is any.
And I'll just kind of add on to that. We were in discussions with property owners and looking at expansion of Fort Nugent Park with this pickleball project and the future loss of some of the soccer fields there at the school district property, which was the original intent of purchasing the Harbor Heights property, of expanding to the south there, both for possible additional fields and also additional parking capacity there. The city has kind of put any sort of land procurement on hold. So that's, I think, something else we want to get a feeling from council on expansion of parklands to facilitate things like that, additional fields, additional parking.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Well, as you know, the property to the south just recently sold to a local family, and I don't think they have any long-range plans with it. In my mind, acquiring that property, if nothing else, would be a piece of trading material for that big vision that I've mentioned to you before of our outdoor sports facility going there on Midway Boulevard where Oak Harbor Elementary is. I think we need to continue to have those conversations with the school district about the bus barn going out to the city's property at the old landfill. When they eventually tear down the large wing of Oak Harbor Elementary, and they intend to leave that historic structure, and this is all when they build out Fort Nugent Park School. In my mind, that is the ultimate facility in the center of our community where people live, next to our senior center, next to North Whidbey Parks and Rec's pool, next to our existing ball fields, skate park, et cetera. Obviously, it just takes that vision and that goal to, keep that conversation moving forward. Obviously, I get it's totally a plan A, plan B, plan C type of a ordeal, but in my mind, that's our new outdoor rec facility right there, and part of it's built and it's within grasp, and I'd love to see that happen. Obviously, the school district's going to need something in exchange. If that property to the south of Fort Nugent Park could be acquired, that would be abutting against their existing facility, and maybe something a little more enticing to them than nothing at all. But you asked, there you go. Thank you.
So just to clarify, one of the things that we're working on as staff is to be more planned out when we're thinking about purchasing property. We have found several pieces of property that the city had purchased, and we would look at it and go, what is this for? It's 20 years later, what are we doing with it? No, and so we're really trying to be more specific in our approach, and one of the things that I sat down with Brian and Steve Schuler and some other staff, and we really talked about, when we think about purchasing property in the future, let's have some plans about what we need. What is the scope of certain areas of property? What is the scope of certain projects that we would want to do? So that when we see that property come up in the community, we can say, ooh, great, this is something we want to bring to council, and here's that purpose, so that we can kind of have that off the shelf, a little bit pull of what purpose that property would serve. In addition to that, we are talking to the school district. We have put that on hold because, as we know, they have 2 large projects going on, and we have been very aware of that. And in mayor's meetings with the superintendent, we've also talked about that and said we want to continue those conversations, but we're on hold. And then the other thing, which you recently heard about, is that in order to keep that relationship with the school district in a good place, we're also really, Kat Kamak went there and spoke about at one of their facilities meetings about what we're doing with the comp plan, what the effects are for the school district, so that we could start those conversations as well. So we're really trying to have these community-focused conversations as part of that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of outdoor facilities in general, sports facilities specifically, turf. We need turf. I know it's expensive. It's expensive in terms of a initial investment, but you don't have to wait 6 months for it to grow. All of the drainage in the months of the year that fields can't even be played on, that concern gets mitigated a little bit. It doesn't require the maintenance. I know that it's a big upfront expense, but I think in the long run, our kids play all year round. And so I think in the long run, it would be worth the investment to have some turf facilities, because especially, well, I want to say in the rainy season, but I mean, we live where we live, but when the rain is worse at times than others, there are fields that are just not playable, and that's not safe. And so I've been hearing turf, from people who actually play and use the fields forever, and also lights. lighting. Our kids play all year round, and we live in a place where it is dark at 4 p.m. for months out of the year. We need lights, and that's one of the reasons why Old Memorial Stadium is such a treasure, and we really do, I think, need to really encourage the school district to park their buses out at Public Works, because that's such a usable space right in the middle of town. It's got the lights, it's great. But anyway, so in terms of just making investments in general, planning out outdoor sports facilities, to me, lights and turf is going to always be a priority.
So, and logistically, just again, to recap what Sabrina has said too, we are having those conversations internally about how to be able to partner with the school district and get them out there, and then have an agreement with them to utilize that space. So we're having to make some accommodations though with respect to like the racks for mechanics and different things in space. So we're trying to work through all those things and then sit down and have a presented idea. I think that she's very open to that. Again, too, though, she's got a lot on her plate right now with the projects she's got going on, so we're trying to be respectful of her time too. So, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Anyone? Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
Couple things. Can we get a little update on Freedom Park? I mean, I know we approve the trails and we approve the disc golf, but it feels like it's been a little while. I don't know where the status is of that.
Hello. Yes, Freedom Park update. It has been a little while. It's been about a week and a half since I've been out there, so a little bit behind on my update. But we've got trails blown in on the south section of the property, and we're almost connected to the first half of the first property. The first hole is just about taken care of with the vegetation. We still have just a little bit more vegetation that we need to do, and then we have, did you get any more marked out?
We have like
Okay.
6 baskets marked, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I've been out there doing the Indiana Jones type. Oh, I've been out there doing the Indiana Jones type work of crawling through the vines and vegetation and marking so that the staff can get out there and have clear direction on where they're removing the underbrush and getting out the invasive species. I haven't been out there probably in about a week, just with the holiday, but we'll continue to move through that. We're probably halfway with a rough on that, and several of the holes and trails are pretty well marked. We just have to get out there and begin to remove the vegetation. And then as we do that, we find the little treasures along the way that we want to highlight for the walking trails, the little fun little pockets of, old cedar stumps with the huckleberries growing out of them that we'd like people to go through and experience. And we're finding more and more of that as we get out there. And we're working, I think, as hard as we can to bring all those little fun features in to make, a preserve, so to speak, right there on the edge of, a variety of communities. So we've got more work to do that way, but we keep plugging away at it and taking our scratches and stinging nettles and all of that stuff while we get going. But it's moving along.
Yep, but I was going to say, it's still rough out there with the spring vegetation flush that we had. Yeah, it's still a little rough out there, but we've got a lot of trails that are cut in and a couple holes that are really formed. So
I'd say timing, we'll have the trails roughed in, and then we can put in the surfacing improvements, have kind of all that together fall, early winter, and then we'll put in like the educational signage and, trailhead amenities and things like that. So probably a spring like ribbon cutting really is what we'll shoot for.
That's what I was kind of looking for, ribbon cutting, if you will. Speak to what we're able to. With the North Quibby Little League, how are things on that? Are we getting along? I know sometimes they've voiced concerns. Are you able to talk anything about that?
We have our field use agreement in place, and we have, we completed the ball field improvements. We are trying to get funding redirected for softball field improvements right now, and that's kind of where we're at.
Okay.
Do you have something specific you want to know about?
No, I'm just asking.
Oh, okay.
Just,
Because I mean, just in full transparency, they hadn't signed their contracts, they hadn't provided proof of insurance, so I'm not gonna let games go forward and have someone potentially get hurt and then come back to the city on that. So we did put locks on the gates and signs up, and we had to go through a short window of transition, but they were able to produce the documentation as soon as that happened, so.
They would have, okay, yep. I know there's some concerns with that, and of course, there's two sides to every story, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to protect the city.
No, and I do not blame you on that role. Absolutely.
And Councilmember Stuckey, just to let you know, we did check with legal before making those decisions, and it was a concern of liability for the young people in our community.
Sure. I'm also curious to know, from the Parks and Rec commissioners, do you guys have thoughts on the Girl Scout building? Is that something that you like, dislike? I know that one was a little, we went back and forth a little bit. And I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts. I'd love to hear them.
I'll go first, Carrie, because you've done most of it. I think we kind of punted on that one, to be honest. If you, watched our conversation or got our notes, to us, it felt a lot like the problem that we were trying to divest ourselves with of putting resources into the pickleball courts that weren't owned by the city over, at the park that the school district owns. We were looking at this thing and seeing this gift, air quotes, I guess, if you want them, being offered, but not having a real vision for it and seeing a lot of expenses and looking at the greater picture of the things we're trying to accomplish and wondering how this small albatross, baby albatross, though, comes into play, and is it going to really serve a strategic purpose? We couldn't answer that with any clarity, so we weren't comfortable making a recommendation to say move forward. And I think that speaks to kind of how we're trying to operate, is if we don't have good clarity on that, then thanks, but, council, mayor, you make the decision, because we're not comfortable making a recommendation there.
I appreciate the candor. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for the park board commissioners, if we've reached that stage of the meeting. I'm curious to know, what are some of your challenges? Like, we've heard about your priorities, but I'm interested in knowing how council can help you, or how we can support you, or how the city can better support you. And so what are we missing? Is there something that should be on our radar but isn't? Is there a challenge that you think that we can work together to overcome, realistically? Is there anything we should be concerned about? Just lay it on me.
They're looking at me. Wow. Well, if someone's going to put their foot in their mouth first.
We like candor. It's fine.
I think this is a great start. We often feel like we're working in a little bit of a silo. And then, whether we're in person or we're watching online or we're getting feedback later, we often have a reaction it feels like we're both a little out of sync. Like we're out of touch. And we want to work, within the vision that's being set forth by our elected leaders, but we can't be good volunteers if we don't have the information. If we don't know where you were trying to work for, where you're passionate about. Because your passion and your passion for those that you represent is what's going to lead the day. And we're here to provide assistance in that. Now, we're also not afraid, I think, to offer stuff to you as well, but we've got a lot going on, and I think we work pretty hard as volunteers. I certainly know that Carrie does. I mean, the stuff that she does is amazing and incredibly time-consuming. But we want to make sure that we're being smart with that. This isn't the only thing that we do. And we want to make sure that we're giving you good information to make decisions on, that you can trust us to provide good research, to provide good legwork, that we're doing the work in the community with the people that we meet and talk with in the spheres and circles that we navigate to get good, albeit anecdotal, information sort of from the ground level. There's no title between us and them that could cause a problem in answering. They'll speak with more frankness than I am right now, and we want to offer that to you. But we also have to know where you're going so we can offer it well. And we certainly don't want to be a distraction, but also we are willing to be an irritant if, y'all are going in a different direction than what you've set forth as well. But without guardrails to shape that conversation and that vision, we don't know. And we just don't want to continue to do the same thing and watch us get the same results. We're ready for a new Oak Harbor, and y'all have paid with staff for that. So we're here to resource that to make sure that that comes to realization. And that's, I think, where we want to go. But it requires this, and as much of it as we can probably get in one form or another to do that, because there's a lot to be done.
Yeah, I would just kind of echo what Eric said. I think that you're never going to give us too much information. Sometimes I think we are feeling like we're having to dig through, like a haystack just to find the information that we need for a recommendation that we're being asked to make. So communication's great. We don't want to be, the Parks Commission is one entity, park staff is another entity, council is another entity, the administration is another. Like, that's kind of how it feels sometimes, and we want it to be more of a collaboration, working together, back and forth communication, things like that, so.
Yeah, no, again, communication is key, right? Can't have enough. Thank you. Communication is key. We can't do it alone, and you can't do it alone. So if we can work together as much as possible, I think we're going to have some tremendous results. Thank you. I kind of echoes my feelings as well, and I know that in terms of improving communications, this administration has really taken huge strides in that direction. And like you said, starting with this, it's like, can we just all get in the same room, once a year even? And I know nobody wants more meetings, but this is, I think, productive and valuable time spent, and I'm certainly willing to make that investment if you are. And you are our eyes and ears on the ground out there in the community, and so please be an irritant. If there's something that we seem oblivious to or we're just not getting that we need to get, that's the kind of feedback I hope for from you. You're never gonna step on toes or something if you think there's something that I need to hear, especially if it can be improved upon. It's one thing to just like, well, here's my list of grievances, but without solutions. But none of you you're all solution oriented people, and I appreciate that. And I don't want you to feel like you're just spinning your wheels, investing all of this volunteer time, only to have your recommendations not valued, or we're not always going to follow all the recommendations of our advisory councils, but you're an advisory council, you advise us. That's the whole idea. And so thank you for investing your time. And for our part, the city's part, I'm not going to speak for the administration, but I know that they are working really hard on improving communications, and we have seen that come to fruition in a lot of different ways. And so I'm looking forward to more of this. Thank you.
I just want to echo what Mayor Pro Tem is saying as well. And one of the things that I'm taking from this conversation is maybe potentially there needs to be more conversation on my part with the council reps on these different commissions, so they're taking specific information back to you guys. Not that you guys still can't come and do this and have these meetings. I think this is important too, but I think it's probably important to have more frequent feedback too. So I will take that to heart. I made myself a note here to do the same. So, Councilmember Stuckey.
Yeah, just, you are appreciated, even if we don't always say that, and I apologize. In regards to, we do have a council liaison, so I don't want to throw Eric under the bus, but that's part of his job, is to help with that communication piece. Are you looking for, in a perfect world, a couple meetings a year like this? Like, what would you like? What would be helpful without overdoing it?
Just me personally, I think once a year doing something like this is fantastic. I know with the shift in administration, lots of things changed. In the past, we would have the city administrator at each of our meetings. We don't need that to happen, but that was an extra voice who was in part of the administration that was attending every one of our meetings for the most part, giving us feedback directly. That may not be practical anymore, that's fine, but Mayor, I like the idea of, giving specific comments or feedback to our liaison, and that way he can relay that to us.
Well, I'm happy to attend too. So, I mean, I may not attend everyone, but I will attend some, yes, for sure.
And I'm also happy to attend. If you would like me there, I'm more than happy to. Just let me know, and I'm happy to add that to my calendar. Thank you.
Yeah,
Can
I
I
think,
answer that real quick as well? I think the answer is it depends. The weight of sort of the work that you see in Parks and Recreation will determine, I think, the frequency of what we need to, or how often we need to meet, really. If we're seeing that we've got a lot of things that we need to get done because a lot of things are coming and they're at a top priority, then maybe we meet a couple times a year. But if we've gotten to the place where now we're just waiting for stuff to get done and there's other things that are taking a more prime spot in the mind and the wallet, okay, then let's serve those and then we can back it down. But I think being flexible to the workload is probably key. And since we've all stressed the importance of not only starting projects, but finishing them,
Yes.
we have to make sure we have those follow-up meetings to hold all of us accountable so that we are getting the stuff done.
Yep. No, I appreciate that, and finishing things is very important to me, so.
and if you guys feel that there's ever, that you feel that we need to have a meeting, please let us know. I mean, I'm always willing to have a special meeting. I mean, we've been asking for this meeting for a little while, and it's taken a little bit of time. My apologies for that, but yeah, if you guys ever feel the need to have another of these meetings, just let us know. I mean, I personally am always willing to do it, even if it's a special meeting. So, thank you for what you do.
Councilmember Arms.
As you know, I usually go, so it gives me more information. And for me, I feel like you're right on task. It's just like Freedom Park. I'm amazed. You're volunteering, you're doing the hard work, which you don't have to do. And this has made immense amount of progress. And that's what I see. I may not speak up, but I'm very aware of what you're doing. And I'm very appreciative of it. You guys are making great decisions. Like I said, we may not always agree, but there's a lot I learned. And so seeing you all in action, so I've been fortunate. I just don't always talk about it. I'm not the advisory, but I see it, and so I really appreciate all you're doing because I'm immensely excited about Freedom Park. Maybe I'll go down there one of these days and look at it. But thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, that is everybody. Does that cover all your topics? We're all good?
Is there anything we're missing?
I want to circle back just a little bit to the conversation we had about outdoor facilities. And I think in the excitement of all the other stuff that we're doing, we've forgotten one key piece. Whether or not that school gets built, we have a safety issue at Fort Nugent with the amount of volume that goes out there when we have events, whether it's soccer or sometimes soccer and football, soccer, football, baseball, not to mention the birthday parties and the other stuff that we want to have out there in those pavilions. And we don't have an intermediate plan for addressing that. We have sort of all of our sports eggs in one basket at Fort Nugent, and that doesn't work. It doesn't work functionally, really. It doesn't work for the staff, and it certainly doesn't work for traffic flow and safety. And as we turn our eyes towards whether or not we actually get a sort of city, in the city outdoor recreation complex, it's still not going to be enough to answer all of those things. The one spot for all of our youth and hopefully adult outdoor recreation, it's not going to be solved with one facility. And as we think about these other options that are going to be expensive and are going to be phenomenal for the city, we need to, I hope, think about something we can do in between now and then that will provide us with some sort of bonus fields that we can have and fields that can still be used after we do other development, because that problem won't go away. And we really do need to make sure that we have an answer for safety. And when it rains at Fort Nugent, we have even less parking. okay? Because the drainage is, the drainage challenge there. And we get a lot of rain on Saturdays, it seems, especially during soccer seasons and baseball season. If you've been a parent or you have, youth that you've cheered on, this. It rains on game days. And we're going to have less parking at Fort Nugent when that happens, or less safe parking. And so I'd really just want to put that back out there so it doesn't get lost in the midst of these great, grand, long-term plans that we need some in-between solution for the betterment of our youth, and for, I think, for the parents that participate in these things and the spectators and the leagues, really. I think we owe it to our community to try to come up with something in between now and when we find the ideal solution, if there is such a thing.
So, in addition to the parking safety concerns, what are the other safety concerns that you have?
Well, the field condition is one. The fields, because we can't maintain the lower fields the way that we would like to because they're not owned by the city, there are so many places that not only can the athletes break an ankle, but so can the spectators. And when we have, multi-generational and I would say people with a variety of mobility abilities going out there to watch, that's a problem. And who's going to take the liability for that with the holes, the bumps, the places? Not to mention that some of the fields are so far away from the parking lot that we get the issues with the dogs of all types of breeds. And there's just a variety of other issues that way. But the neighboring and communities, and I'm more sensitive to this because I live over there, fill up. I live on Waterside Court, and I have seen the gate on a private road be blocked by cars parking to go watch soccer on the worst of days. Okay, and now a lot of my neighbors would be, I would say, the people that might need, that would be more likely to have medical attention, okay? Emergency service vehicles aren't getting in there. But in general, we just don't want our activities, I think, to be spilling over into our communities so far that it creates those kinds of issues, and that's what we face there. And we want to make sure that we can get emergency services to places that they need. These things do happen. We want to make sure that people of all generations and abilities are able to enjoy, spectate. Spectators are vital participants in all sports. That's what creates the environment and the ambiance. And we want to be able to have a park or more spaces that allow for that on game days and on practices, and we don't have it right now. And I recognize that's a big goal, but I think we can do micro improvements just by finding places that we can activate for lower cost that would really help alleviate the solution while we cast this vision for this greater goal that is coming, and we can feed some small meals along the way until we offer that feast. Okay, I think that's what I'm trying to get to. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much. Anything else for the good of the order? Yes, Councilmember Romero.
With regard to capital assets in the form of parks and recreational facilities, it's really important to be mindful of the depreciation and the costs of maintenance, and you brought up about safety. And I'm mindful of the fact that the recent executive at the state level was emptying out the prisons of so-called nonviolent offenders, and they go places. So what I'm describing is, I'll use an illustration from what's called the Sutton Rule. Willie Sutton was a bank robber in the early 20th century, and one guy said, "Why do you rob banks?" And Willie Sutton said, "That's where the money is." And so it became a rule that the simplest alternative is the place you start. So when it comes to assailants, pedophiles, thieves, the countless, they're going to go where their interest is, even though it's destructive interest that they have. And so as you're expanding and bringing in the kids and all the rest of people who may be vulnerable, we have to be mindful that there are those people who are going to follow the Sutton Rule and go where their interest is, even though it's damaging and illegal and destructive. So let's keep that in mind with regard to assailants, thieves, harassing people, persons. We've got to figure that piece out, because the more you attract large groups of people, the more it's going to attract not necessarily the best of us. All right, thank you.
And on that note.
Well, I've been there. I've dealt with this, so I'm mindful of it.
Brian, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just speak to that real quick, that our staff, as well as the leagues I know, all engage in extensive training around youth and vulnerable adult protection. Participant safety is something that we always take very seriously and something that we consider whenever we're doing large special events or youth programs or whatever that is. And we work pretty closely with our police department and our safety staff here at the city whenever we look at planning around those things. We find our biggest issues are when we don't have, staff eyes or participants or people around with vandalism and destruction of property. But we have a pretty good track record with both prevention and also in appropriately handling any incidents that might occur. So definitely a shout out to our police department as well for all the work they do around that.
Thank you, and I do want to praise the police department because we have one of the safest communities in the state, and it's directly a result in part of the fine work of the law enforcement. Thank you.
All right, we are on a happier note. Are we ending there? Thank you. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll come back at 2:41, and then we will do the last item. right, I don't have a gavel, so there you go. Here we go. We are back in session. All right, thank you. I'd like to take a few minutes to invite council members to provide any updates on the city's boards, commissions, or committees on which they serve. Feel free to speak now or forever hold your peace. Councilmember Merrill.
Without getting into the details, the police department and Island Transit have been working on an agreement to cooperate together with regard to the bicycle training costs to the mutual benefit of both the city and Island Transit. So I thought it was a great innovative idea that actually Chief Sloat brought to my mind and my attention. And as the member or the ex officio, or actually I'm technically on the board with Island Transit, it's working out. But the fleshing out the details has not occurred yet, but it's just a great work in progress where we'll have greater law enforcement where it's needed for Island Transit in the city, not to mention Spin Cafe by name. And then, so we'll be better off all the way around.
Yes, thank you for that. And I was encouraged when we met with her, I think it was last month, sat down, had a meeting with her, toured the facility, and she's very excited to be working with Chief on that endeavor, and that is moving along very well. So, yes, Councilmember Arms.
We have one more meeting for the Marina Advisory Board to interview who's going to be on there, and that'll be Thursday, so we'll see who we get.
And you selected a new harbor master. Yeah, so, I mean, have we,
That's
does everyone
awesome.
now know
She's
that? Okay,
awesome.
great,
I
okay.
watched her in real time when she was at the boat show.
Well, I was
it
going to
was-
provide an update on that for you. So you had over 3,000 visitors at the boat show, and you received several signups for even mortgage slips and that, and so it was very encouraging, and it was a very productive time.
Well, no, to watch her interact and see the knowledge that she had, I was like, whoa. I mean, it was so informative. I really enjoyed working with her, so I'm glad she's the harbor master.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, on the Planning Commission side, obviously, we've been keeping updated on the comp plan discussions. I did want to point out that we have several openings on the Planning Commission. You know, Planning Commission, Parks Commission, both carry heavy loads along with Arts and several of the other commissions. But, you know, if there's anybody out there interested in long-range planning, the future of the city, you know, how it's going to look and shape, you know, Planning Commission's a great place to step up and volunteer for. And, you know, the Planning Commission's been pretty short-handed for quite some time, and there's, what do we have, four people carrying the load of 7 on that commission right now, so we'd love to see some more people step up. Thank you.
You do have one more applicant coming too. We're very excited. He was at a Right Blend conversation not long ago, and we're very excited for him to be, he put in his application, so, yeah. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't remember if I had updated, but I know that I alluded to the Northwest Clean Air Agency issuing a grant funding for a couple of regional projects, and we did decide on said projects, and the funding is being split between an Opportunity Council to redo the HVAC and provide air conditioning in a low-income housing unit, like an entire apartment building, and which is just excellent because they're, you know, vulnerable individuals, and so they're going to have access to more efficient heat and cooling, which we love the cooling, and also the city of Bellingham to install a solar project, a solar panel project, and so that one is, you know, they have to find somewhere to put it and everything, but the proposal itself was really solid. It's just a matter of citing that. And also, as of our July meeting, San Juan County is coming back into the fold. They started out as part of the Clean Air Agency. It's 5 counties: Whatcom, Skagit, Island, San Juan. Excuse me. And did I forget one? No, 4 counties. Okay, 4 counties. And then I don't know the history, but 25 years ago, they dropped out of the agency, and they've realized that between the monitoring equipment and the air quality data and the interactive website during wildfire season, it's very hard for such a small county that's all spread out to kind of do all of that legwork by themselves. And so they've rejoined the agency, and as of July, then, we will be whole again, and we're really looking forward to having them participate. It's a really great resource. If there's anybody out there with asthma, allergies, breathing problems, if you're curious about the air quality, if you're curious about, they can even predict like wildfire. So I don't know how they do it. It's very scientific and very cool, but any questions at all, the website is really robust. It's really interactive. And so go to nwnorthwestcleanair.com and check it out. It's really informative. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anybody else? Councilmember Stuckey.
So continuing to work with the mayors of Coupeville, Langley, and Commissioner Johnson on redoing the interlocal for the Embrace Whidbey. It's kind of interesting as we are talking about budgets and things, knowing that we may be under a completely different structure in 6 months. So it's been an interesting challenge, I will say. And then LTAC means we'll start up here in a little bit. Talking about tourism, though, I got to give it up to the Whidbey Ren Fair. I asked the president, it was just shy of 12,000 ticket sales. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the Datafy numbers to see how many of those are from off-island, because I got a feeling that a good amount of those were from off-island. And so that's kind of how we get our LTAC dollars, is people coming off-island, staying in our hotels. So looking forward to seeing that data. That's all I have.
That's awesome.
It was a tremendous turnout, unbelievable, actually, to me.
All right, well, thank you, and thank you to all the volunteers who serve on these boards. Your participation is very much appreciated. Any additional comments at this time now from council? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry, one thing I forgot on the harbor master thing. I shared this with Sabrina. I spend a lot of time down at the marina, and the staff there is great. They're always very helpful, but they never lobby me for anything, ever. I mean, they're never like, hey, can I pick your brain, or can you ask somebody? Never. But when it came time to interview for harbor master, I did get an earful from staff, and that adorable earful was how supportive they were of Elise being in that position. And so not only did they really appreciate being involved in the process and getting to meet the potential candidates, since they're the ones that have to work with this person every day, and they're the ones that see day in and day out what kind of issues are happening down there. So valuing that contribution, I think, on the part of the administration was a really great move. And I was just down there yesterday, and it was all smiles, because every one of those guys was backing Elise, and they're just delighted. And it was, it's really sweet to see our different departments really kind of work together as a team and support each other. And so they usually, like I said, they don't lobby me, but they did, and all I can do is just pass that bit of feedback on to the administration. That's all I can do. And but yes, it was all smiles down there yesterday. So congrats to Elise.
And we love hearing that. So, yes, Councilmember Romero.
I've been observing the hiring process from the outside with regard to the leadership in the city, and I would just want to say the emphasis on having really the best person competent to do it has been the focus, and whether it's been promotions from within or without, or selections from without, it's just wonderful for me to see, because being in the Navy and law enforcement and other areas, there was this buddy system where people just moved up. But here we're finding constructive performers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we will move on from council member comments and go right into our city administrator monthly departmental reports. And here to present that is our city administrator, Sabrina Combs.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just have a couple of updates. I wanted to let you know that on the topic of advisory boards, we have been going through those applications and reviewing them, and so staff is hoping to bring those back to you for confirmation in July. So that should be on the July meeting. And so that is currently in process, and some of those interviews have already taken place. So it's very exciting to see us move forward with the new process. We are continuing to do the updates to bylaws and ordinances as we committed to, but we have some that are already moving through that process. And then in the report, you do see some new stats for Public Works, and then from Public Records, we're including more of that information so you can see the type of records requests we get. One of the things that is difficult, as you may or may not be aware, is that a lot of times people will request records, staff will do the work to produce the records from the different departments, and then nobody will pick it up. So there's hours and hours of expended time that is just not accounted for because at the end of the day, there's no record there that's taken. And then you will see some new information also about the ERP process that our staff is going through. This is a huge migration and new software that's coming online. Chad's going to attest to that. So David and the finance team and staff from other departments are coming together to attend lots of training, build the baseline of the system. I liken it a lot of times in conversations to building a house from the ground up. They are currently working really hard on the foundation and making sure the tools and information is there. And now we're starting to add on to it and get those trainings and items in for the rooms that we're building and the way that that process is going to work. So kudos to the staff. We also had some staff that went to a training that Tyler put on in Texas so that they could have that in-depth information and sessions with those teams. So we really appreciate that. We have also had some IT cybersecurity things that we've been dealing with, and our team is on it. Just sometimes there are things that you cannot predict. So kudos to those folks for staying up sometimes all night to try to address those issues and find out what's going on and really work through so that we can get staff back online. So those are just a couple of the hot items that have come up since. And then I did want to say during the parks review when the commission was here, we are updating you on some of those projects in that report from Parks and Recreation. So on those pages, there's details about the different Freedom Park, things like that, and what the updates are with some photos. So Parks and Recreation is doing a really great job of including those photos for us to show us how it's progressing with some of those projects. If you have any questions for me, just let me know.
Yes, and the one thing you didn't talk about was the emergency management training that's
Okay.
coming up. So I just want to highlight that we are working closely with county commissioners. I believe you all are coming in next month before a workshop.
Yes, and Mikhail's even making sure that you will be fed between.
And then there's the workshop afterwards. And then myself and Sabrina will be participating with the county commissioners in August. And this is really important to Commissioner Johnson and all of them. And so this is exciting that we're moving this forward. And it's all under the leadership of Travis, our fire chief. So he's doing a great job.
And I think one of the key things that we learned from Commissioner Johnson that's helpful is a lot of times as elected officials, you're not sure what your role is. Do you come in the room? Do you give advice? Are you supposed to address this? And this training will really help you understand what your role is and how you participate in the process. How we work together to do one form of communication. Those types of key issues that we need to work on as we progress through an event when it happens. And then Travis is working on some tabletop and actual exercises where we pretend that an event has happened and how we're going to work through it to get our community over the next few days of that situation.
All right, we are approaching the last subject. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes.
I have a question on the public records information. I
Yes.
appreciate am I missing something in my pack? Like there's a one page and it says how many requests there are and like what the billing and stuff, but it doesn't say anything about what those requests are, who they're from, what they're about, what are the general topics, any of that.
So Mayor and I get a rather lengthy report that's a little bit interesting to dig through to get the detail. What Nicole is working on right now, our public records officer, Nicole Bradley, she is working on attempting to make that report a little more streamlined for you to be able to review. And unfortunately, the tool
summarize.
doesn't kick out that information very easily. So what she's doing is identifying a way to give you more detail in a straightforward manner so that you can review it. So this is the first draft of that, but she's working on a revision.
So the real problem with the report is the formatting of it.
Yeah.
And so how it comes out in the report, it could be 15 pages long depending upon how long the request was from the person.
Just the description of
Yes.
Gotcha.
And it's a pain to read through that stuff. Yeah. So I think that's where we're trying to figure out how to format that better so it goes out looking more concise. So I don't know. Is she still working on that process?
She's still working on it just
Okay.
because it's kind of a manual process, so we're trying to figure out that effort of how much time does it take to produce a report. And so she's been coming up with some really great ideas around that within the work that she's doing. She's also doing an excellent job, just as a heads up, as we're talking about it, with going out to departments and educating them more about the public records process. So I really appreciate some of the things that she's brought to the table with improving this process for public records, because it is very hard. We literally, as an example, the other day, she was talking to me about something I had to produce, and I said, well, I thought I didn't have to do that. And she said, no, you do. And then she came back 2 days later and she goes, you know, at the training yesterday, they said you don't. So the rules change on a regular
The landscape's
basis.
always changing, yeah.
So that's why we really appreciate the dedication she's put into this role and just really taking the time to work with staff and get us to where we need to be.
That's fantastic. What I don't want to do is create a whole bunch of extra work. And so if trying to kind of pull out the information from the request to summarize is too much work, this one page, just kind of a overview of the workload is fine. But if someone wants to like forward the long report, I'm happy to dig through that myself just for my own curiosity. So, but yeah, I don't want to create a bunch of extra work for somebody. So thank you for that update. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. I think the last thing I wanted to touch on that we didn't talk about before I call up David for the last item was you had asked about the frequently asked questions last meeting. I performed a review of those and pushed back to Maggie with a lot of edits before I'm willing to let that come forward or be released. So you just got back, so what, I give you a couple more days?
I saw the edits today, sir, and so we have to give a response a few more days for
Okay, yeah, so I had quite a few edits, though. There were just, I wanted more specificity in the information, otherwise I didn't feel like we were really addressing what you guys were looking for, so. 2 weeks? Oh, no. So, we're working. All right, so Development Services, action item, amendment number, Councilmember Romero, what's up? Yes, sorry.
Well, my exasperation level is rising with regard to the open records requests and the like. Is there any way to get leverage on people so that they have to pay for what they're doing to us? Because what I'm saying is you have this narrow scope of people that many of them are just, from law enforcement, we'd call them jail lawyers. In other words, they're inmates that do nothing but create legal hassles from jail. And I'm not just saying that people that are doing open records requests are always that way, but what I'm pointing out, if there's a burden placed on the city that's extraordinary or exceptional from open records, there ought to be a way to collect from them.
Even in my former life as an auditor, we used to call them constitutionally challenged people.
Thank you. That's a polite way to say it.
Yeah, so, but unfortunately, no, there isn't anything that we can do. This is an issue that AWC has elevated all the way up as a priority for the entire state. It's part of the whole being transparent with government. So it's just really frustrating that you do all the work and then it's never even picked up. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Or you do all the work and then it's $1.10 to get compensated, so.
And it's why it's one of our legislative priorities that we always include in there, because there's also a misinterpretation sometimes of the public that we're trying to limit access, and we're not. What we're trying to do is make it as efficient as possible and make sure that when we have staff spending the time, that that's actually for a purpose, that it's being utilized and it's being picked up. So Nicole is also keeping track of that, so we really appreciate the work she's doing around that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think we're ready now. So, action item amendment number 6 to BHC Professional Services Agreement for Building Official Services. And here to introduce this topic is our Development Services Director for a few more days, Mr. David Cool.
So thank you, Mayor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity. This is a contract amendment with BHC. They're the company that does our building official services. BHC has been with us since 2021. We've used them exclusively for plan review, for building official services, for inspections. This is a firm that we use to back us up. Anytime we're in a jam where we don't have enough staff on hand, we'll call them and they'll do on-call services where they'll come out and they'll do inspections for us that same day. They'll also do plan review for us if we have somebody that's gone on vacation, which can tend to happen from time to time. We get shorthanded. So this is a critical firm for us to use. as part of our building official services. If you've driven around town lately, you know just how busy things are in the building world. If you go out Oak Harbor Road, you see Camas Flats is out there. That's 82 units of multifamily housing, and that takes a lot of time to do inspections. A lot of different single-family developments are all over the place, and so our building guys are quite busy. So this is a critical firm for us to bring back. What this contract would do would be we'd add $30,000 to the current PSA. It will continue our service of using a on-call firm. And at the end of March or at the beginning of March of 2027, we can go back and look at it again. We've also talked to other firms, and we have other firms that we could pull off the MRSC roster if we decide we need additional help. So we did try to plan ahead so that we don't have any problems down the road. So this is your recommended motion. And Mr. Mayor, at the end of this, if I could have a couple minutes of your time, I appreciate it.
You bet. So I will call upon council for their questions and comments. No? No? Okay, or I would I'll entertain a motion then. Yes, Councilmember Romero.
I move to approve the professional services agreement amendment with BHC for building official services.
We have a motion as presented by Councilmember Romero, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. David, we have something for you before you step away. First, I want to say this marks your last meeting.
Yes, it
I want to
does.
say thank you very much for your service to the city. It's been my honor to work with you for the last year and a half. I know I haven't worked with you as long as others, but I've enjoyed my time working with you and our sometimes colorful discussions over the comp plan and what's going on, or my fence, if that goes for that matter. So, but Tara has a presentation for you at this time. Mayor Pro Tem.
Do you want to say what you were going to say first?
Yeah, why don't I go ahead and say what I was going to say? and-
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Mayor and council, I appreciate your service here. You thank us all the time, and we don't thank you enough. So thank you for your time. I think the Development Services Department has made tremendous strides in the last 5 years. I feel real happy about the progress we've made. Our theme has been continuous improvement, and that was a theme that was developed out of the State Auditor's Office, where they came up and they spent a lot of time working with us on lean work. We spent a lot of time working together between the Building Department and the Engineering Department to get us to work together better. And I think we've made a lot of progress there. You've seen all the annual reports we do, and so you've seen all the progress we've made, all the buildings we're doing all over the place. But the things that are coming up are the things that are the most exciting for me. The thing that's coming out very soon is the Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan, and that'll be out very soon. Really excited about that. We should see a good track for us to run on as a city for economic development, and we've been waiting for that for a long time. Something else we've been working on, which is right out here, it's the Waterfront Redevelopment Program, and that's all going to see a report before long. So that's something else we can all really be enticed to go out and try and be excited about. Something else, the multifamily tax exemption program. That's something that's going to help us build some affordable housing. I know Commissioner Wiesner was on the original Housing Task Force back in 2019. That was the number one recommendation that the Housing Task Force came out with, was to establish an MFTE program. So that's coming. We have a subcommittee created, and so once we figure out where we want to put all of our density as part of a target area, that's when the MFTE can come into play. The fourth item I want to talk about is the comprehensive plan. That's all happening right now, and we have mediation this week with the county. We hope that as we get through this whole process, we'll figure out where we can put our density and where we can't, and where it would work best to have multifamily tax exemption affordable housing projects. Our consultant helped us analyze lots that are in town that are a quarter to a half a mile away from grocery stores and from schools and from transit stops. So the logic is you would have your affordable housing in some of those locations. And as we develop our comp plan, that'll help to establish those target areas for the MFTE program. So those are the things I'm excited about for the city. And this has been a great run for me. I really appreciate all of your work and your help. And really excited. You know, Ginger Pennington and I, we came out from Chelan County several years ago. And we looked at each other all the time and we'd say, wow, this place is great. And I don't think the employees of the town really understand how great it really is until you've worked somewhere else. So thank you all. I appreciate your help.
I just want to say too that the Economic Development Action Plan, I just reviewed that again today, all of the edits, and that looks really, really good. So I'm really excited about that. So
Very
it
exciting.
looks really good, really good. So, all right, it's all you now.
It's been fun to see from my perspective how the staff in development services has really come into their own. I've been here for almost 15 years. You've been here for 5 years, and your leadership style, something I appreciate about it is you're like, I'm here if I need you, but you can do it, you know. And it's been really fun to see the progression from up here just in the last several years, how a lot of staff, because of the autonomy that you give them, have really come into their own and have really stepped up and taken on additional responsibility and grown. And I already think we have such incredible competent staff, but you know, if anything, they've gotten better, and that's because you gave them the ability to do that and the room to do that. And so I just wanted to say that from that observation, I appreciate that so much. And from the city, we have, in sincere appreciation for your dedicated years to the city of Oak Harbor, we present this plaque to David Cool, 2020 to 2025. Your impact here will last long after you've left, and we're grateful for all that you've done. We hope that you enjoy your well-deserved retirement, and this is a part of our salvaged Gary Oak.
Wow.
Great job, David.
There's an opening on the planning commission.
All right. Thank you. There being no further business,